morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again. And I want to thank Raquel once again for the passion and the burden that God has put in her for holiness and principles, godly principles. So I'm going to be brief today, but I just have something in my heart that I want to share. And it just starts with holiness. Holiness is a mark of separation. As an apostolic, the two things of mark of separation that we have is baptism in Jesus' name, and separation, holiness. And that is what separates us as apostolics. And today, I want to talk to you about convictions, and I want to start with, having standards. In our organization, we have standards, biblical standards, and which standards are important. Standards are something that we follow. They are safeguards, they're guidelines, they're boundaries that are set to help us, to guide us, to protect us, from the evilness from this world. And so it is important that, just my pastor, he explained it as, just like a restaurant, they have to have standards for their food. It's important, and, we need making sure that the food is fresh. I don't want to go to a restaurant where everything is past the due date and is dirty and disgusting, but that's the same thing with us. We must follow standards to be safe, to be pure, to be holy, to be righteous. And today I want to also touch on convictions. Convictions are important. Convictions is something that shouldn't be negotiable. And convictions, me personally, I look at convictions as there's godly principles that should convict us. They're biblical principles, but there's also personal convictions. And personal convictions are brought by, they're built upon, something that maybe God has placed in your heart, something that you used to be, let's just say, addicted to, that, now that you found your way to Christ, you will not go back to maybe a place or a thing, or, and those are personal convictions that you cannot cross that line. You know better. You know where it's going to lead you, and you're going to save yourself. And this is the line I'm going to draw right here. This is my conviction. And, I may have different convictions from you, but again, like I said before, there are convictions that are built upon biblical principles. And as apostolics, as children of God, we should all have those convictions. And so, it's really important that we never silence the voice of conviction. It is so important that we always listen, because we can take ourselves to a place where we cannot ever come out, or by the grace of God that we do come out. And I just want to share a testimony with you, regarding convictions. It was about 7 years ago, and we, as a family, we joined a gym together, and it was like a CrossFit, similar to CrossFit. They always say it's like a community and a family. And, as a family, we joined this gym, and so I thought, okay, this is good. Our family's gonna be together. My boys are athletes. I enjoy fitness, so hey, let's do this. And we began to go there. Everything was great, and all of a sudden, I started to see changes in myself. As far as I became competitive. I worked out with college athletes, girls that played volleyball, they played soccer, they played, they went to universities, but they would come here to train. And I wanted to be better. I wanted to lift heavier than them. I wanted to compete with them. I had never been someone to compete. I didn't even play sports in high school, but it just something that came over me. And as I started to be that way, also it began to invite other spirits into me. And the more I saw changes in my body, more definition, more muscle, my clothes began to shrink, my clothes began to get tighter. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. I just went with the flow, worked out 5 days a week, and it was something that began to get a hold of me. It was something that I began to idolize. And again, when you're in the middle of it, you don't see yourself, you don't see anything wrong. And eventually, we must have worked out there for about a year. And eventually, my boys began to tell me, Mom, this is all you want to do and all you want to talk about. Like, we're sick and tired of hearing you. And I'm like, oh, just be quiet, and I that's all I would talk about. I would spread the fitness news, and that was like my top priority. And so finally, again, my boys began to just be like, Mom, like, enough is enough. This is, getting out of hand, So their schedules changed, and they were no longer able to go, and I was the only one attending this gym. And I began to pray, I began to be like, okay, is what's happening to me, and I began to pray. I said, God, search me, oh God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. And I'll tell you, I went so far that if someone walked into that gym, I looked like everyone else, and I was no different. And so, I just began to pray, all right, God, if this is not of you, if this is not making me better, let me know. Like, I need to know from you, because you are the one I want to please. You should be the only idol that I have, and nothing else should come before you. And so, eventually, like, my eyes began to be open, and I was like, okay, God, tell me if it's time to leave. I will leave. Like, let me know, because I don't want to have idols before you. And finally, my husband said to me, you know what, Janet, it's time to leave. It's time. You've learned enough. You've done this enough. You know what you can do on your own. Well, my flesh didn't want to. My flesh wanted to continue to go there. It was an environment, an atmosphere that I did not belong in. And so I had to obey. I had to obey the priest of my home. And I eventually quit going there. And during that time, you build friendships, you build a community, and it was like, oh gosh, how am I going to do this all on my own? Like, I can't, And so I already knew, like, it had overtaken me. I already knew that it had me bound. And so once I had quit, I told God, all right, God, I'm going to fast. I need to bring this flesh into subjection. I need to show it that the spirit must be greater. And I said, all right, God, I'm going to, okay, here I am. I went 5 days a week, okay, faithfully. And I told God, no, I want you to know that, God, you are first in my life, and I'm not going to work out for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, I dedicated it to God, and I said, no, my spirit must be greater, and this flesh has to die. And after those 2 weeks, it was just the greatest thing I had ever done, and it built in me a conviction that, and this is my conviction, that every morning I will not work out in the mornings, because that is my time with my God. That is the time that I have set aside to spend time with my lover, the lover of my soul. And ever since then, it's been a couple of years now, of course, I have never worked out in the morning, because that was my conviction, because I never want to go back or take step into where I was. And so I'm grateful for those moments, never silence the voice of conviction, because it's part of growth. It's sanctification. The closer you draw to God, more things are going to be exposed from this heart. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. But when you give it back to God, He's going to do great things in your life. I pray you are blessed and encouraged. And I want you to read Romans 12:2. Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Our mind must be renewed daily. And I also want to share with you 1 John 2, 15 through 16, love the Father and not this world. Love the Father and not the things of this world. I pray you are blessed today. God bless you.